Okay, so from your Cricut Design Space home menu, you want to go ahead and select the new project option, and that will give you a blank canvas to work with. First portion of the tutorial, I'm just going to go over how I quickly make the loops for my keychains. And what I do is I select shapes and then enter a circle shape. And what I want to do is create a hole in the middle of this shape. So I'm going to duplicate the circle and make the second circle circle a little bit smaller by sizing it down and putting it in the middle. And then highlight both of these by dragging a box over them. And I'm going to go over to the Align drop-down menu and hit Center. And then once they're centered, I can cut the middle circle out of the larger circle by going to the bottom right and hitting Slice. So now I know that I have this accomplished because over on the right, I have now 3 layers. So I can click on these other 2 layers and just delete them and get them out of the way. So now I have my little latch. And I can use the same one for my keychains, my planner charms, and or any necklaces. Okay, so now that I have that completed, I'm going to go ahead and duplicate that. And I'm going to show you a couple of different ways that you can create keychains. So first is I'm just going to go right back into that shape menu and I'm going to select heart. And I am going to select, shapes, a star. Okay, so these are just basic shapes, nothing special about them at all. But you can create keychain or charm or what have you, necklace, by taking one of these little loops and just figuring out where you want it to go. Where would you want your little loop on your keychain? Would you want it over to the side? Would you want it there in the middle? Would you want it over here on this side? Just figure out where you'd want for your little loopy loop to go. And I think that for my heart, I'm going to have my little loopy loop over here on the side. And I think I might make it a little bit smaller. And these are perfect size for keychains right now because I usually keep my keychain at about 3 inches. So when you insert a shape, they usually insert the shape at or about 3 inches automatically. So I haven't really had to size them any bigger or smaller. Just my loop for now. So I like it right about right there. Okay. So I'm going to take this loop and I'm going to duplicate it a couple of times because I want to have them on hand. And I'm just going to grab one of them and then figure out where on my star would I want to have my little loopy loop on my star. Okay, I think I probably want it about there. Okay, so if you were going to use just basic shapes like this, how we would create that would be to attach those 2 shapes together. So we do that by drawing a box around both shapes. And I know they're both highlighted because I look over here, the circle and the heart both show up as highlighted. And I'm going to weld them together. So down here at the bottom, you can see that the weld shows that when you take 2 shapes and put them together, that it makes it one giant shape. So I'm going to select that and look, it's attached. I could move it around, it's attached. And I know it's attached now because one of my layers has disappeared. I don't have 4 plus this, so. All right, and I can do the same thing for my heart. For my star. So let me go ahead and select both of them and then go and hit weld. Look, it's attached. Perfect, huh? Okay, so then if I wanted to, I'm just going to go ahead and delete this star because I don't really want it. I was just, wanting to show you how to do it. But if I want to make this a keychain, and I would need to now make my layers, because you want multiple layers so you can glue it together and give it some stability. So making sure it's highlighted, what I would go over here and just hit duplicate. Since I'm using a heavyweight cardstock, I'm only going to need about 5 layers. So taking my mouse and dragging it over and making sure both are selected, I'm going to hit duplicate again. So now I have 4 of the 5 layers I need. I just need 1 more. So now I just need to highlight 1, hit duplicate. Now I have all 5 of the layers I need. So now what I can do is I can go ahead and send this over to my Cricut mat. So I'm going to hit make it. And look what it's done. It sent the shapes over to my Cricut mat. And it tells me that I only need 1 mat. So as long as I have a paper that's 12 by 12, I'd only need 1 mat. Let's see if we change it. I don't want to use a 12 by 12 piece of paper. I want to use a piece of paper that's 8.5 by 11. So I'm going to change it. And I did change it here on the mat. It says I can still fit all 5 of my shapes on that 1 sheet of paper. So that's great. So we can go ahead and send this over to be cut.
Okay, so I use the 110-pound heavyweight cardstock. So I'm only going to be adhering 5 layers together for my first keychain. However, if you use something that is lighter weight than 110-pound cardstock, you may need additional layers than just 5. Subsequently, if you use something that is heavier weight than 110-pound cardstock, such as chipboard, poster board, or craft board, you may not need 5 layers. That may be too much. So this is really sort of a trial and error. And don't mind my mat, because I reuse my mats over and over again. So I just put a little painter's tape to make sure that my cardstock is adhered properly, and then that's it. So I'm going to be using art glitter glue, and art glitter glue I find has a really good hold. I don't have to worry about it coming apart. And then I'm just going to take my layers and apply the glue and adhere the layers together. Some people choose to use Mod Podge for this part of the tutorial. I like art glitter glue because I've never had a problem with it coming apart. It really is a preference. I haven't had any problems with my keychains not adhering properly or coming apart. Just make sure that they're going to be lined up. And I just do a really, really thin layer. You don't want to add any kind of bulkiness to it. And this glue, If you haven't used it before and you work with paper or glitter a lot, this is awesome. It's a little bit more on the more expensive side of glue, I guess, but to me it's been worth it. It's my go-to for everything. You can see the thickness. Really good. There's a lot of stability to it once you're putting all these layers together like this. And we're still going to seal it as well, so that just really make sure everything's on there good. This is perfect. Okay, so that's for the basic shape, and then you would put your hardware in there. Perfect.
Okay, so now we're going to work on a keychain, planner charm, or necklace using an image that we upload and bring into Cricut. And this could either be a picture, SVG, or a PNG. So just a little bit, without going into too much detail about what the difference is between each of those. The SVG is going to have different layers that you would piece together to make one image. The PNG is just going to be an image that has a transparent background. So it's only going to be the image itself, nothing around it. And then a picture, of course, would be a picture same as you would take on your phone. So it would be people in the picture and whatever background was around them at that time. So what I'm going to do is selecting the new project button to get a blank canvas in your Cricut Design Space. I'm going to go to upload and choose a photo to work with. The first one I'm going to choose is an actual SVG image. You guys should be familiar with those. These are what we typically use in our form of crafting all the time for shirts and wine glasses and such. So I select my image, hit insert image, and then there I go. I purchased this image from Etsy. I don't really remember the name of the seller, but yeah, I got this image from Etsy. Client wanted this image specifically for a shirt that they wanted made for their birthday. So referencing back to the previous portion of the video, I'm going to size this to about 3 inches because I don't want it any bigger than that. And hit enter. And then I'm going to go ahead and make my loop for my keychain hardware. So remember, we did that by selecting a circle, duplicating it, putting the one in the middle, going up and aligning it center, and then cutting it out. Okay, and then we don't need these, so we deleted them, and we're left with our ring. I'm going to size it down a bit to a size that I feel would work well with this image. I think that's good. Where do I want it? I kind of like it there in the middle. Okay, so This is an SVG, and you can look here on the side, it has all these different layers, and I don't want to work with all those different layers. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select the image and the little loop cut out, and I'm going to duplicate it. Okay. And this first set of images, the image and loop, making sure both the loop and the SVG are highlighted, I'm going to select flatten. And matter of fact, I'm going to go back a step because this little loop thing, I want it to be the same color as her hair. I don't want it that gray color. I want it to, yeah, there we go. That's what I want. I want it to be black, the same color of her hair. So now I'm going to repeat set of steps now that I've corrected the hair. Excuse me, the loop color. Selecting the image and the loop, I'm going to go over here and select flatten. So now when I click on this image, you can see that the loop and the image have been condensed into one layer. So I don't have all the separate layers like I do with this image. You can also see that the image is a lot sharper now that it's been flattened. So now we're going to do the same thing over here, which is making sure that we have the loop and the image selected, but instead of flatten, what we want to do is create a shadow layer and weld those two pieces together. Sorry for the noise. And then I'm going to hit weld instead of flatten on this one. And it should create a black image. That would be your shadow image. Okay. So this one is going to go on top. This one is going to be duplicated and adhered together with glue, and they'll go on the bottom. So selecting this one, let's go ahead and duplicate. Now I have 2. I want a total of 5. So highlighting and making sure both of these are selected, I'm going to hit duplicate again. Now I have 4. And one more time I'm going to select it and hit duplicate. Now I have my total of 5. See how easy that was? Well, practice makes perfect, so the more you do it, the easier it'll be. All right, so now what I'm going to do is send this over to our mat so that we can go ahead and cut it out. Let's hit make it. All right, so you'll see that this one is going to be a little bit different from the first one that we worked on. The first one we worked on, we only had 1 mat to prepare. This one, looking at the top left-hand corner, tells us we're going to have 2 mats we need to prepare. One, which is going to have a print and cut image. So this is going to print out on our printer. We'll then put it into our Cricut machine and it'll cut it out. And then a second mat where it's going to cut out 5 of those layers. And what I'm going to do to conserve cardstock, because the 110 weight cardstock is a little bit more expensive than just a regular 65-pound cardstock, I'm going to use the same piece of 8.5 by 11 paper that I'm going to print on to cut out my shapes on as well. I'm going to show you what I'm going to do to make sure they can all fit. So looking at this first mat, if you can see my registration marks, which is that black box that's printed around the image, is going to be about 4.5 and about 4 3/4. So going to my second mat, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change my canvas mat size so that it matches to 11 by 8.5. Second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take all those images and move them out of that 4.5 by 4 3/4 space, and I should be able to get them all on the same sheet of cardstock. At least that's the goal. Okay, it's a little sloppy, but they all fit in there just fine. So I will be able to use the same sheet of 8.5 by 11 heavyweight cardstock to both print and to do my cutting out on. So I'm going to hit continue. Once it locates my machine and connects, then what it's going to do is want to send my image to the printer. I typically will uncheck the bleed box. I don't really need it to have a bleed on it. And then I'm going to insert my cardstock into my printer and I'll be right back. Starting from my Cricut Design Space homepage, click New Projects to get a blank Cricut canvas. Okay, this time we are going to use these little cuties, and I've already put the loop on these, so I wanted to show you how to do the other ones first. And now we have these that already have the loop. These are already print and cut images and they already have the loop on them, so I'm going to highlight both of them and change the height to 3 inches. And then selecting the first image, I'm going to duplicate and repeat for the second image, duplicate. Now these are already print and cut images, so this time what I'm going to do is on the duplicate image, selecting the first one, I'm going to go up and change this from a print and cut image, and that says print and cut, to no fill. And so that's made the background image that we'll use for our layering. I'm going to do the same for this one down at the bottom. So selecting the image, go up to the top and select no fill. Okay, and so now I can select this one and this one. And I did that by holding the control button down and clicking on both images. And then I'm going to hit duplicate. And I want 5 of these, so I'm going to draw my box over all 4 of these shadow images, and I'm going to hit duplicate again. Okay, now I have 4. Just need 1 more of each, so I'm going to drag my box around the last 2 images, and I'm going to hit duplicate one last time. And again, sorry for the noise in the background. It's New Year's Eve, so there's a lot of traffic going by today. Alright, so I have all 5 shadow layers, and then I have my 2 print and cut images, and I'm going to go ahead and send these over to my mat. Okay, so it shows here that our print and cut images are going to print within about a 4 by 4 square. So On my second image, mat, excuse me, on my second mat, I'm going to change this to an 8.5 by 11 letter size, the same as I did before. And I'm going to move all of my images outside of that 4-inch by 4-inch print box. And we should be able to fit everything, no problem. Doesn't really matter how you choose to line them up, just as long as they're outside of that area at the top where the images are going to print. So I'm going to go ahead and send this over to my printer and print it out on the heavyweight cardstock, and then send it over to my Cricut machine to cut it out.
Okay, so our last keychains are these little cuties here. I've already completed a set, so I'm not going to do the whole thing on camera, but I do want to show you so that you can see the steps on this one too. So it's easy to determine which of these goes with which because the hairstyles are different. So after you pop out all these pieces, just like we did with the other, we're going to glue all these shadow layers together, and then we'll adhere the printed image to the top. Get these last two off of here. Okay, and then you would take your art glitter glue or any other glue that you were using. You're going to adhere all of these shadow layers together first, and then once you adhere the 4 shadow layers, then the 5th layer is going to be the actual image. So I have some that I made earlier and have already applied the triple thick to the front and back as well as to the sides. So take a look at these cuties here. So these have the triple thick already applied to the front in even layers. Doesn't take long at all for it to dry, just a few minutes in fact. I prefer the triple thick for this process over epoxy because there's not going to be any mixing or measurements that are going to be required. The triple thick, you just go ahead and pour right out of the bottle and apply with a paintbrush. So you don't have to mix anything, you don't have to waste or use your epoxy. You could if you'd like to make a glass coating, but you can see it's hard, it's sturdy, it's not bending, it's just fine. So I did put a layer on the back, and then I put a layer all around on the outside as well. And this was our second one that we worked on. The triple thick has dried on the outside. I am going to now put a layer on the back of it. And then for our heart that we made, triple thick has cleared, has cured for the first layer, and then I'm going to go ahead and apply it to the back as well. And then once the back's dry for these two, then I'll go along the sides of the keychains as well. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and see you guys on the next one. Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, and hit the bell for those notifications. Talk to you guys later.